Then we'll move to the tentative budget under old business, capital B, tentative budget, beginning on approximately page 167.
For the purpose of this presentation, I told Tim to highlight the assumptions page, which will give you the idea of significant revenue assumptions, as well as expenditure assumptions and their net effect on the budget. And then there were one board member submitted some questions, so we'll address those questions. Remember that we do have, the board will take action tonight on the tentative budget, the state requirement that sits on our webpage and available for public display for at least 30 days. We'll have at least 60 days before we take action. So there's plenty of time if we need to make tweaks or changes at the August meeting before we take action on it in the September meeting. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay. Real estate taxes, again, as we discussed a little bit earlier, they're budgeted again at 97%. That's something, if the board wants to talk about that, we can look at possibly, adjusting that, moving it up a little bit. I don't know what the board's thought is on that. Tax refunds, which are another significant item that we just talked about a few minutes ago, again, are budgeted at the same amounts for next year that they were this year.
Well, that comes from our lawyer, right?
Yeah, I talked to him and get an idea of what he thinks is going to come through during the course of the year. A lot of times they can't really tell you. They just have an idea of what's out there. They don't necessarily know what's going to go through the appeal board. On the revenue side, technology fees are increasing. Obviously, we're adding a grade, to the one-to-one program. On the other local revenue this year, we had a $165,000 grant that we received during 2016 from Airmark that we used to pay for the computers for the one-to-one program. That's obviously revenue we're not going to receive in this coming year. So that's a decrease of $165,000. General state aid, they've made some changes down at the state level in terms of what the reimbursements are going to be on general state aid, what their payments are going to be. We should see about a $376,000 increase in general state aid next year. So that's obviously reflected in the budget.
But that will not happen every year.
No.
So we
No, I mean, they may come back in another year and prorate it to a different amount, but that's what they're projecting right now. I did make an adjustment on the special education reimbursements. I bumped those up some to reflect a little bit higher amounts that the state has been paying for the past couple of years. So we're not being quite as conservative there. And personal property replacement tax, one of the other items where I made a change to reflect that overpayment that the state made to the municipalities and school districts that they said they're going to pull back. Building rentals have been adjusted to account for the construction that we have in the main gym. Obviously, we're not going to have the rentals there until we get the work completed. I've adjusted the cell tower revenue. I decreased that to reflect that repayment that we have to make to AT&T. Those were the major up and down changes. I mean, obviously, that service, the revenue and the expenditures change based on what the bond payments are that we have. There's a little bit of an increase there, just based on the fact that we issued some additional bonds and things like that.
On page 82 in board book, if the board so chooses, I did get the projection and I included it under my financial report from the state. And state aid is projected to increase $322,000. So Scott, we would probably need to adjust our revenue from 376 to 322, and this reflects about a 31% increase in state aid for this fiscal year, which I sent to the landmark, but I think they reported 45%, but they're correcting in the landmark.
I hope they are. What was their source, the secretary? I think their source was the secretary.
So that's, we need to make sure we correct that. And that's if we receive 100%, which at this point in time they're saying they're going to provide, but we've never received 100% of state funding.
The most significant item on the expenditure side is the salaries, obviously. We increased administrative salaries. All the administrators received a 1% raise. we increased all other salaries by 2%. There was a question about that. We use that as just a placeholder to say, you know, we've got to come up with some number, so we use 2%. The board, obviously, in the negotiations with the union, it may end up being higher, may end up being lower than that. And there was a question with regard to whether or not that would have any impact on our reliance on the.
No,
No, we're okay with that.
Oh,
I
Right.
solved that question.
oh, okay.
We answered that.
So that, you know, obviously salaries make up the most significant part of the expenditures. What we do on medical insurance, which is another big item, is we put together literally a list of all the employees in every department and what insurance they've chosen. So this year, we actually did see a decrease because of some of the changes in personnel that we had. Someone may have gone from family insurance down to single insurance. We saw a little bit of a decrease there. The rate increases we saw last year were really insignificant. So that's why there's a decrease on the insurance cost. And then I don't know if you wanted me to go through all of these things where we've taken social worker salaries out of the student services department, moved it to the special ed department.
Just address any major questions that were submitted.
Yeah, I think that's,
Overall budget is reflected to show a small,
it shows $175,000 surplus. I mean, obviously, we just talked about a change.
that'll be
in general
down by
state aid.
50,000 with the state aid, from 376 to 321, so roughly about $100,000 to $120,000 surplus.
Yeah, and there may be a few other, adjustments that are made between now and August, and then again until September, as we get more information and things like that.
The fund balance that's represented there, is that just because of the increase in property tax collections, 5140?
Which number are you looking at? I'm sorry.
At the bottom of page 171.
Oh,
Or your budget.
is that,
You have operating fund
Yeah.
balance as a percentage
Percentage
of
of-
5140.
right?
Is that just because our working cash is up with the tax collection? Or is that what you're anticipating? we
Well,
should
that's,
be at?
yeah, that's the actual working cash without the $900,000 that we still have left in working cash from the 8.9 million. So, yes.
Well, we just reported earlier, we're at 12 something at the end of the current fiscal year, right? 12 point, what was it, Scott, you remember, like
Well,
12.3 million or something like that?
Well, that's the operating expenditures, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 12 million,
11 million. Yeah, the operating expenditures are the 23,158,000.
Right, but I think Tim's
Yeah.
asking the fund balance
The fund balance,
is going to be down by 400,000
Right.
compared to the current year. If you look at
we
your,
said in the
if you look at your
financial,
financial officer's report,
we said the operating fund balance was 12,623,000,
Right.
which is the number on here.
right,
At the end of next year, we're projecting it's going to be 11,898,000.
which is a
That-
decrease.
That'll
is
be
a
a decrease
decrease.
because we're moving $900,000 out of working cash, which is in the operations funds, into the capital projects fund to cover the projects.
what's our current percentage now then? Higher than
We're in-
51?
No,
Yeah.
we're in the 40s.
So then how does this go to 51.4?
Same money, less expenditures.
Well, 12, what's it, 12.6 right now?
Yeah,
That's more than,
it's 12,623,000 is
That's
the
like
current
s-
balance.
isn't that like 60%?
Or is
Well,
it
but-
because there's a
but we're
large chunk
comparing-
in working cash?
We're comparing the operating fund balance at the end of the year,
Right.
which is going to be 11,898,000.
I'll check it.
Okay.
We'll run through it again.
We will look at it.
And those were the major items, Tim?
Yeah.
Major questions?
Um,
It's your last chance to
There
go
was a
out
lot
with a
of-
bang here, so you take your time. You want to, got a top hat you want to put on while you answer these? or-
Yeah.
No, I mean, the major
The only
questions.
thing I would ask, if
Okay.
you don't go, is, Kevin, I don't have a problem with approving this tentative budget, but some of the items that there's question, at least consider them before we do our final budget.
Okay.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And
I think-
especially the the two areas are the revenues where we were way over budget this year. How do we really think we're gonna come next year? And, you know, you can talk to our electric supplier and our gas supplier, they'll project for you what our usage would be for the next
Yeah, actually,
weather for
That's,
that.
that's how I did set those budgets.
Okay.
I got,
They did a pretty bad job again.
yeah, yeah.
But you still, I at least want to make sure we go through the step to do it.
Right. But
And I
we had a
think-
couple of the questions you were ready to answer, right?
Yeah, I think and this budget is set, you know, we're setting this budget back in March and
Sure.
April, when we don't have, the numbers we're looking at as actuals for
Sure.
the year are only 8 or 9 months. Now we've got 12 months, so we
Right.
do have, and I know that some of the questions that you asked, you know, were reflecting the fact that you were looking at the 12-month
Yes.
numbers and comparing it.
Right.
Okay, which doesn't necessarily done when a lot of these numbers were set.
I
So
understand.
you're right, we can take a look at the budget and look at making adjustments in the
Plus, you'll
August.
have this 12 months actual now, too.
Correct.
As you prepare the next version of the budget, and it's a much better indicator of where
Correct.
we're at.
Right.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I think that we also need to, in the budget for the breakdown, is to be able to show what the true operating fund balance is, minus any capital projects. So what is the true operating fund balance? So any monies we have towards capital, for safety bonds, that should be all pulled out. This is what the operations balance is left. You see what I'm saying? I think that we
Is
need
that
to
what you
do-
have on there?
Well, it is on there. That's
Okay.
what, if you look at that,
So it says 900,000 without 900,000, is it 900,000 working cash?
Right, because working cash is an operating fund,
right,
but it's really earmarked for capital expenditures down the road.
Maybe we put an addendum on it showing what that spending's targeted for or something. I don't know.
Okay, so
yeah. I'll take a
we've
look
gone
at this.
through the CFO report, we've gone through the tentative budget, and we've gone through the bills. Is there any hesitation that we can pass the bills tonight, later on, after Tim leaves? Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and the tentative budget, we know at least the general state aid number is going to change, and we're going to look at the revenue projections to see if the 97 should be 98 or whatever. We'll have Scott go back and with that, what help he gets from Tim, and try to give us an answer on what we should do with that. Do we have any hesitation to passing the tentative budget tonight?
The only question I would ask, is there any concern if we did, you know, let's just, for the sake of having, let's say we decide we're going to increase our revenues by $500,000. You look at it, because we were up this year, we think, you know, there's some consistency. Is there any kind of rule where, I mean, we have carte blanche to make changes in the budget that we present next time, right? We're not limited to making any kind of adjustments based on what we put in the tentative budget.
No. And as long as it stays out there public, and which it will for another 30 days after
Right.
August, we're fine. It's once you
Okay.
make it in September, then it takes formal board action to amend the budget.
Then I have no reservations.
Okay.
And Tim, are there any of the, Tim McGinnis, any big questions that you think you need to put some color to tonight in case you're not available in August? That you and Scott went through? Or will most of them make more sense now that we see the 12-month?
I think most of them are gonna make more sense when we see the 12-month. I think a lot of it was those questions with regard to the tax levies. I know there was a couple there was one with regard to the transportation levy, in terms of how we could increase that budget as much as we did. A question with regard to why we decreased the education fund tax levy, the budget. Again, we talked about that earlier, that we had taken some money out of there and put into transportation. So I think we've, you know, the major items we've taken a look at, I think.
Okay. Now, one last thing then.
Okay, as the sun is setting upon the day,
Get poetic. I like
Tim's
this.
been with us for the last 5 years, you know, standing side by side with Kevin in various meetings and financial workings that he's done for the board, and the board would just like to pass along this card to you, and with a little token of our
Well,
appreciation
thank you
for all
very
your hard
much.
work. And then the floor is yours for any parting words you'd like to give to the board and to the new person and your superintendent. especially as he goes forward.
No, it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed working here. I can't believe 5 years have gone by, but you got a great superintendent.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Tim's done a great job.
Tim, you did a great job, honestly.
Scott, when Tim and I first took over in July for our first board meeting in the budget, and a lot of these board members were new, that meeting, I think, went to about 1:30 in the morning, and we were like, we didn't make this budget, we don't know. So that was an interesting experience, so it was nice that Tim came back and helped you through that.
Thank you very much, Tim.
What I also like too is anytime questions were asked you, probably about 95% of the time you had the answer.
95.
Which I think that shows that you know your numbers and everything. So,
And you always came back with the rest for the other 5% the next week.
I agree.
You did a great job, Tim. You've been very loyal to me and to this
Oh.
district, and we really do appreciate everything you did for us. And I think presenting a budget tonight to the board at the start of my 6th year, and would have been the start of your 6th year with a 51% or roughly a 50% fund balance, where we came in at,
Yeah.
that's a credit to your hard work. So thank you for being a partner to me.
All right.
Thank you very much.